America, we gotta get back to doing what's expected of us as free citizens in this democracy. That means being tolerant, being respectful, staying informed, and being engaged. I'm former Congressman Joe Walsh. Follow me here and join the millions of Americans who are renewing their social contract with each other. The social contract, it's on us. Hey, everybody, come on in. Punch those hearts. One of my favorite thinkers, observers, philosophers of our body politic is on with me today, Mike Brock. I can't wait to chat with Michael Brock, and I want everybody to listen to what he has to say. So welcome, Amy. Welcome, everybody. As you come in, I don't know, but I hear every other Substack person say this: punch those red hearts. It does something to the algorithm. So come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Mike Brock, my handsome young guest right there next to me, who's in New York traveling today. Awesome. I'll say it like this, Mike, because this is how I've described you to other people. And pick this description apart. You are my favorite observer right now of the scene of our body politic. And I know that you are much more than an observer. But to me, you're my favorite observer of what the fuck is going on right now and what it might mean for all of us. So I'll just say this out of the gate: everybody, as you come in, make sure that you follow and subscribe Mike Brock to Mike Brock on Substack. His newsletter, Notes from the Circus, is a must. Hey, respond to that, Michael. Are you called an observer? Are you called an observer by others?
Am I called one? I mean, do I call myself one? I mean, yeah, I mean, I am. I mean, I spend, I left my big corporate position in Silicon Valley. Now we're about a year into this new chapter of my life, post-corporate America.
Remind everybody, Mike Brock, as they come in. I know you've told me before. Why did you leave that big, cushy job to do what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I didn't leave that specific job because I had some like specific issue with like the company that I worked with.
Right.
In fact, I want to be very clear. I left on good terms and like everything. But I in the back of my mind while I was working there, when I realized I was going to be leaving this position, I also sort of came to the realization, I think deep down, maybe I didn't accept it initially, that I was just spiritually out of line with where Silicon Valley was going.
Yeah.
And so I started a Substack and I started writing, which wasn't completely new to me, by the way. When I was younger and in my like 20s, I was like a blogger. So, it was kind of a bit of a return for me. And now you asked me, like, what do I make of you, like, as an observer? Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be what I've described myself as trying to be someone who's a moral witness. I have a moral standpoint. I'm very clear about what my morals are. They're grounded in liberal values. I have what I would say liberal moral commitments, and from that stance, I am watching what is happening in this country that both you and I love, Joe. And I'm trying to give a morally grounded story, a morally grounded observation around what I see happening. And I write in a very moralistic way, and not everyone loves moralists. I'm sorry, but that's what I'm trying to do.
And because that's what you try to do, I love to check in with you on a regular basis because you and I both agree that what America is going through right now is fairly profound and disturbing. I like to check it, to say the least. I like to check in with you on a regular basis to get your thoughts, your moral view, observations as to where we're at. So, Mike Brock, it's October 14th, 2025. That fascist in the White House has been president for 9, 10 months. Where are we at right now?
I mean,
Where are we at tonight?
we're in a really interesting place in history. Interesting is maybe a morally neutral way of putting it. But we I want to I want to just maybe say something to your listeners because or viewers, sorry. You know, most of the people listening to the sound of my voice right now are obviously very concerned about what's
Mhm.
happening in this country. And you should be, right? The fact that you are concerned, the fact that you are worried, it means that you are conscious and aware of what is happening in your country. That fear that you feel in your chest, that is you. That is the embodied you in this
Yeah.
world, like sensing danger. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's important. But we also want to make sure that this doesn't paralyze us. This doesn't like neutralize us. This is what tyranny wants. It wants you afraid. It wants you second guessing yourself. And what I want to tell people right now about this moment is like one, your fear is warranted. These are scary things that are happening.
Yes.
It would have been beyond my imagination 5 years ago that masked unidentified men would be crawling across our streets in America's cities and towns and nabbing people and detaining people without any reasonable suspicion. And this has started to increasingly entangle U.S. citizens. We see these stories, U.S. citizens being detained for 3-4 hours while ICE ascertains their citizenship status. This is, just to be clear, and you can go talk with constitutional lawyers about this. This is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. That this is happening with such, like wanton disregard for that fact is something that should alarm
Hey,
us.
can I push you a bit, my friend?
Yes.
5 years ago, you said 5 years ago, it would have been beyond my imagination that mass federal agents would be crawling on our streets doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
You didn't imagine some of this?
I mean, I couldn't allow myself to believe that
Mm,
this could happen. I mean, certainly I understand this could happen. I mean, I have for a long time I have been deeply passionate about
yeah.
democracy and the
Yeah.
project. And so and I have, I'm a bit of a an independent scholar. I of internet and international human rights and democracy promotion, and so I'm very familiar with the solidarity movement and Poland and Hungary, and so and obviously what happened in the post-Soviet Union with the rise of Vladimir Putin after Boris Yeltsin stepped down I've been really worried, obviously, coming out of the first Trump term, that we were
Yeah.
in a period of dramatic democratic decline in this country. January 6th was, of course, a very, very worrying sign that was true, and Donald Trump's reemergence into our politics was a
Hey,
brutal confirmation of that fact. But yeah, I couldn't imagine that we would see like masked men disappearing people off the streets in America, and most importantly, I think the thing that I could not imagine, the degree to which it's being tolerated by
yeah.
American citizens today.
I don't know that I've ever asked you this, Mike. That period, that 4-year Biden period between the Trump administrations, did you, how did you feel during that period? I've not asked you this. Did you feel
I
like, okay,
I
go
I I mean
ahead?
I mean if you had asked me in 2021, 2022, if I thought that Donald Trump would successfully return to power in the United States, I would have. I was pretty sure he wouldn't. It seemed that January
Mm,
6th had sealed the deal. I was probably a little bit too optimistic that the criminal cases that were being brought against
Yeah.
him would politically damage him. I miscalculated there. His reelection. I mean, for me, the most devastating moment was election night. I was worried going into it
Yeah.
that I had miscalculated, but I knew what it meant. And if you read my posts on Notes from the Circus
Yes.
and the interim period between election day and the inauguration day, most of what I worried then out loud was going to happen has now happened, and more
Yeah.
actually. In a sense, I was in, like, I go back, I wrote, the very first piece that I wrote on Notes from the Circus was "This is fucking serious,"
Yeah.
and I feel like my fears in that have been kind of blown out of the water, and so I've had to kind of calibrate myself and sort of ask myself, well, what is really going on here? And look, I don't
Yeah.
want to be, I like to be like measured. I don't want to come off as like an alarmist or a propagandist. I'm not a propagandist. I mean, people should see
No.
how critical I am of the Democratic Party and the left as well.
And I want to get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not, my observations here are not partisan. They're existential. I consider myself an Americanist in a sense. And, I know that Heather Cox Richardson has described herself similarly.
Yeah.
I feel kind of in much the same vein as her. I love this country. I believe that this country can take many different shapes and forms according to what the voters and the people, the citizens who make it up, want it to be. And I want to live in that dynamic melting pot America, the shining city on a hill. Winthrop's famous poem.
Yeah.
Look, that is what I care about more than anything, more than like tax policy or like immigration
Right.
policy or like
Agreed.
that there is this institution that we have built
Yeah.
together that represents the people who can govern themselves through these institutions in a constitutional republic, and that process, that coming together, e pluribus unum, from the many one, like that idea, that beautiful idea, the radical idea in the all the way back in the 18th century, the first time in human history, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That a nation would, I mean, the nation state was a pretty relatively new
Right.
thing still, relative to the history of civilization, but like that, the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this grand experiment that we call it. I care about that more than anything. And that it is from that vantage point, that love for our history. By the way, when I say I love our history, I want to be very clear about this, because our history is filled with terrible shit that we've done. I mean, slavery is, of course, we sometimes call this our original sin. Like, I agree, but like, we recognize it as such. We're ashamed of it. The fact that we feel shame about it is manifest of the fact that we are a people governing ourselves, and that our collective consciousness drives us towards that more perfect union that's mentioned, in our founding documents. And so it's that what is possible when we are a people together. And what that's my love. That is what I am defending.
And this is why I adore you. And this is why I regularly implore people to follow you and subscribe to you. I am, as you know, a different kind of a beast in that I grab my musket every day, and I feel like I'm in trench warfare every day. And I need to read what you write to help me understand where we are, because I lose perspective, and to help me understand what it all means. And this is, again, why I encourage everybody to follow you and subscribe to Mike Brock. Now, you were right in that these are scary fucking times. We should be afraid, Mike Brock. The fear should not paralyze us, but I want to focus on the fear, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Right now, October 14th, 2025, and it's an impossible answer, but what is giving you, Mr. Brock, the most fear as you think about it right now?
My biggest fear is economic, actually. If I just in terms of
Yeah.
my worries for the country, I believe pretty strongly that we're heading towards some economically rough times.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to pontificate. I'm not an economics. I don't write market stuff. But like what I believe is that um, with trends like AI and automation, the trade war that Trump has brought upon us, the um, the pressures that are being put on the agricultural industry as a result of those tariffs, in addition to the sapping of migrant labor. Which, by the way, I mean, this is the thing. This is like the open secret, right?
Yes.
That red farmers in red states have been employing illegal immigrants as farm workers, and like everyone knows, like this is why like Trump even like talks about making an exception. It's like this is something that we all need to take responsibility for, because
Yeah.
we're full of our own shit as a country on this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
And so now we're evacuating these people from our country. This is, of course, causing grocery prices to go up. Farmers are struggling. There's a bankruptcy crisis. Hard times are ahead, and I'm really worried. I'm worried that people are going to fall into economic struggle in the
Do
coming
you, Mike,
years.
Mike, do you feel that more now than you did even a couple months ago? Is that an increasing concern of yours? Hard times are ahead?
It's a very intense increasing concern that I have.
Okay.
And I think if you like, and I this isn't just like my intuition. I read and consume from economists and economic analysts and sort of market commentators, like pretty aggressively. It's like an aspect of our world that I want to understand. And I think what I just said reflects the fears of
Yeah.
some of the most like respectable people out there today. I and it makes sense to me. Like the arguments that are being made that we are headed for tough times make sense, and we've seen the job market is softening aggressively. There was like a negative, like what, 37,000 jobs were
Yeah.
lost according to non-farm payroll. So I mean, like this is scary.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. Politically, this is all being driven in essence by one man, his tariff policy, his mass deportations.
It's not
Like
being
I
driven
think
by one man. I mean, it's
I
clearly
know,
being
hold on,
driven by.
hold on. Oh, no, I know. You go off on that. But my point is, I don't see how it stops, because I know my former political party ain't going to do anything to stop these policies. So I don't know how the hard times don't come, because I don't see the tariff policy reversing. I don't see the mass deportation policy reversing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It does seem that look, the political economy of the Republican Party is something that I, I mean, look, I will say one thing. I'm very
Hmm.
surprised to watch Marjorie Taylor Greene's interesting progression, and she has now even to see her criticizing the ICE raids now is interesting. And I'm not trying to do this as like hopium or like to like say that like God we are saved. But
No.
it does suggest to me that um there are like the Republican Party is filled with opportunists, right? Ultimately, in fact, so is the Democratic Party. I mean, there's a lot of opportunists in politics, and one of the things you can kind of count on opportunists to do is to always try to calculate in their mind where they think the wind is blowing.
Right.
Because they always want to take the greatest opportunity to serve their own ends. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is clearly a political opportunist. She's a political entrepreneur. Um,
But
that she,
I'll make one distinction, Mike, and then respond. When I publicly turned against Trump as a Republican 7.5 years ago, damn near every one of my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate called me and told me privately they agreed with what I
yeah,
said about
of
Trump,
course they
but they
did.
couldn't say it.
Of course they did.
But right, they couldn't say it publicly. But 7.5 years later, Mike, there are many, many more true believers in that Republican caucus than just cynical, opportunistic
Yeah.
Republicans. That's what I worry about, is there are less opportunists and more true believers. But to me, Marjorie is also a true believer, but interesting. So
Yeah.
I
So
do worry about that.
so what I would say to that, Joe, is look, well, while we can get everyone really afraid, and I write things that justify the fear, like I also want to be very honest about like where there's some optimism. I think there's some real optimism to be had. I do think Marjorie Taylor Greene
Yeah.
path right now is maybe a little bit more significant than people think. Not because I necessarily think that she's going to lead like the Republicans to impeach Trump or something like that, but I think it's a cultural bellwether of a sort that the problem with the MAGA coalition is that it's internally contradictory, right? It's built, it's built on like conspiracy theories in some cases. You have these tech fascists like Peter Thiel and
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen and all these people over here, and they don't really have anything like to do with like those nuts over there. And then you have these this communitarian rightists, and then you have like the Bannons and the Loomers, and all these people kind of have their own internal conflicts, and you always like hear about these like civil
Yes.
wars. So I mean, that's like, so if you're them, if you're say, I mean, if you're JD Vance and Stephen Miller and Russell Vogt, who are like really running this fucking government, let's be
Yes.
honest. Like
Yeah.
you know, you have a lot of reason to be concerned, right? Because you just hoodwinked a whole bunch of people
Mhm.
in like some of the poorest Americans
Yeah.
in some of the poorest states into voting for you. And then you just ran, and then the oligarchs that like own the fucking
Mhm.
Republicans in Congress rammed through a tax cut bill that was paid for by this is the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
56 to 57% of people on Medicaid voted for Trump.
Yeah.
These people, obviously, for cultural reasons, like maybe they're mad about immigration, they're all angry about all the crazy shit that they see on social media. But like when they're like they can no longer, their kid can't continue their chemotherapy or their leukemia treatment. Um, and those stories start running in the local newspapers. And we're already starting to see some of this happening, by the way. This
Yes.
is why you're seeing sort of some of the you're starting to see some of the success of candidates that are starting to take advantage of this
Yeah.
in these states. I mean, they've lied to their own followers. And so I
Yes.
mean, and so the and it's also true that they're being propagandized and all their followers are stuck in this like this mishmash of bullshit that's like algorithmically fed to them, and the talking points are distributed across
Mhm.
Fox News and Breitbart and Newsmax and all this other stuff. That's all true. But at some point, politics stops becoming entertainment and starts meaning becoming a meal on the table. And we're
Yeah,
starting, and
no,
we're
you
seeing
are
this,
right. Go ahead.
and we're seeing something now that in the second Trump administration that we did not see in the first Trump administration. Republicans Republicans were consistently saying to pollsters that they thought the economy was in great shape and everything was getting better. Now, less than half of Trump voters, MAGA voters, think that, and it's been declining precipitously. And so, this is now a massive opportunity for the pro-democracy opposition to start reaching out to those people and really exposing the corruption and the lies, and then throw in those ICE raids and free speech violations stuff. Like there's an opening there, and people need to understand this. As scary as this moment is, and that's why you should be at the No Kings protest on October
Right.
18th, is that
Right.
there are a group of Americans right now who are bought into this MAGA machine, but are now starting to feel real pain. And they're starting, and the fun TikTok videos and insane like propagandistic shit that they've been swallowing, which has been like causing them to get their dopamine hits and being all crazy in the cult. It's not feeling as fun anymore, because now like they're skipping meals and they're worrying about like the rural hospital that's about to shut down, where like grandpa's getting, his dialysis treatment. This is happening now, and they're getting scared too, like economically.
No,
And so
hey, Mike, you're right, man. That was not a factor we had in Trump 1. I'm asked all the time, when would Trump voters ever turn on him? I believe it will only be via economic pain. I think that is a real X factor this term that will move people away from him. And you're right. You're seeing Marjorie
not
Taylor
for
Greene.
free.
Oh,
Not for
no.
free.
You're seeing more populist Republicans, Josh Hawley in the Senate, trying to get ahead of this. So that will be really, really interesting to watch.
I think what I just described is why Marjorie Taylor Greene she's a political
Oh,
entrepreneur and opportunist. She's feeling what I just described to you, and she's starting to calculate to herself that this whole like Trump like thing is like over. I think so.
that's interesting, Michael.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't. Go ahead.
I'm not saying that makes her a good person. I don't think she is. I think she's a political opportunist, but I'm saying I think she's an opportunist, and I think she's seeing pain in constituencies that are core to her, core to her political power. And she's reason, and Trump. I think Trump also pissed her off by not giving her the like agreeing to endorse her for the Senate run for
Yeah,
a
and it
Georgia
was
Senate seat.
also Marjorie's been very consistent as well about the Epstein files. And
Yeah.
there's been a small group of MAGA Republicans who have been firm on that and who have not gone along with Trump. And Marjorie's also been that way. I look, I think you're right. I think the economic pain is the only thing that will move Trump's base off of him next year. I think, Mike, respond to this. I think the images of the cruelty of these masked agents on our streets doing what they're doing is going to move more of the people who voted for Trump, people in the middle who are not part of his hardcore base. They just voted for Trump because the Democrats suck, because whatever. These images of cruelty, I think, are going to move these folks in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. So yeah, I think those are like real dynamics, and those, if you're and we should be clear, the Democratic Party is doing a pretty piss poor job at capitalizing on these dynamics. If you want to talk about that too, but I mean,
well, I want to get into that. Let's segue into that. Give me your biggest criticism of our resistance party, a party I joined 4 months ago. Go.
Well, look, I mean, I'm kind of going through kind of like a deathbed conversion into sort of a form of anti-establishment liberal position. It's clear to me that there's a donor captured, consultant captured sort of gang in the Democratic Party, especially concentrated within congressional leadership, that is, look, I mean, I'm not a populist leftist, but like, I mean, and I'm going to sound like one now, but I mean, I think some of the more populist leftist observations are correct. I think the sort of the Schumers and the Jeffries of the
Yeah.
world, I mean, they rely on big corporate donors for their personal political for their personal political survival. And those are the people they talk to on the phone.
Yeah.
They're the big donors, are the ones that they're responding to the text messages from. And those people are trying to thread a needle. And the problem with corporate America is right now is that they're forced into this like fucked up position through the incentive structures in which they exist. I sound like I'm like forgiving them, but I don't really. I'm very mad at corporate America. But I mean, like they're hedging their bets. I mean, corporate America understands like this could go really south. We could end up in a fascist dictatorship, and so we need to take a knee and play ball and give Trump 24 karat gold bricks with like I can't fucking believe Tim Cook did that. And then the fact that and so you have that world and they're the ones who are sort of like texting with like Schumer and Jeffries and their teams, and those people are really they're concerned about probably like stability of trade with China, like supply chains and all this other stuff, and the reality is that voters sense that. This is why Democratic voters and the Democratic base is so upset with the party, and why the party has such low approval rate. They realize that those are the people that the leaders of the party are listening to. And I mean, look, this isn't about capitalism or anti-capitalism. It's about the fact that like we're in a constitutional crisis. What the administration is doing is existential to our the continuation of our republic as a constitutional republic and self-rule by the people. And they're acting like this is normal politics because the world that they live in doesn't want to focus on these other problems, because focusing on those other problems will piss off the administration, and then the administration will attack those companies. And so they're just like not in the right frame. So like we need a little bit more populism on the left, of people who are more morally grounded, that are more civically minded, that are like, what the fuck is going on, guys? Like look at what is happening in Chicago. What the hell happened at that apartment building, the South Shore apartments? You're telling me they repelled from a fucking a Black Hawk helicopter, like and kept fucking like American citizens in some of those apartments like at gunpoint for like hours on end, to like, what are like with what warrant? Why has anyone talked about this? Why aren't there congressional hearings like that? Like the fact that we don't have representatives in the Congress, which representing their institutional prerogative, like the Article 1 branch, right? Madison's ambition, matching ambition. Which is how it's supposed to fucking work. Congress should be asserting itself. None of that is happening. That is, and I understand the Democratic Party is not in power; they are in the minority. But like the leadership is simply talking. They're talking about like kitchen table issues, and this is a distraction. Like, what are you talking about, Hakeem Jeffries? What are you talking about, Chuck Schumer?
Utterly,
this is insane.
Utterly, Mike. They're not meeting the moment. The leadership and the establishment of my new party not even coming close to meeting the moment. It's been this way for a while. We've been in an anti-establishment populist phase for a while. That's why Trump's been successful. The Democratic Party has not recognized this moment. I've always been a populist, Mike. Not my fear, but the populist, the leftist populism is in the ascendancy, and that's where the energy is in the Democratic Party right now. I long for, is it possible to have populist centrism, a centrist
It's
populist, or is that an
possible. I mean,
oxymoron?
I would say Bill Clinton was kind of like that in like the early '90s.
Not bad.
I mean, it's
Not bad.
I mean, it can happen. I mean, populism is not. Uh, Look, I mean, populism is usually a bad thing in my opinion. Like historically, it usually goes off the rails, left or right. But like, can you thread the needle? Yes. Do we need populism now? Yes. That probably sounds contradictory with what
Yeah.
I just said.
No.
But here's the truth: we have a fucking out of touch elite. We have an out of touch elite that is
Completely.
serving fucking like coastal elite motherfuckers like me, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not really uh the people in middle America don't feel like they have any say in what's going on in their country.
Amen.
They're
Amen.
and they don't feel they have any say at what goes on in the Democratic Party. So it's not surprising to me that here in Manhattan, in the city of capitalism, that like, you know, Mamdani here could like win.
Yeah.
Because
He
I think
will.
a lot of people I think a lot of people are not looking at him. You know, they hear he's a socialist. I think most people are smart enough to realize that he's not going to be able to like, you know, impose communism on America from like his mayoralty. But what they hear is some guy who like seems to genuinely fucking give a shit about like, you know,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like people's lot in life, and like and he's not giving them a whole bunch of like mumbo jumbo about like, you know, about like 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 deferring to experts and economic models and policy papers. There's
Yeah.
all the other shit that this and talking points and things. The guy walks through the streets and like greets people and just like shoots the shit with people. And like, yeah, maybe he has some crazy fucking ideas. I'm sure a lot of people who plan on voting for him think his like government run grocery stores are a crazy idea, and they're gonna vote for him anyways. Why? Because they want somebody who gives a shit and is like literally representing the people. So this isn't
Yeah.
about like for the James Tallarico in Texas, I think is another great example of this. And you also have what's his name, the guy who's running for Senate in Maine.
Graham Plattner. Yeah.
Graham Plattner. Yeah, I mean, that is look, you could be a centrist and act like that. Like you could like give a fucking shit, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's
This
where
is
the energy's
Mike.
coming
This is
from.
look. This is what Trump did. I mean, if you want to simplify it down, dude, to nothing, middle Americans, regular Americans, white, black, and brown, felt fucking ignored by their political system. And this fucking demagogue came along and said, I hear you. I'm going to build a fucking wall. I hear you. End of story. And all the regular folk last year who told me they're going to vote for him knowing he's a fucking asshole, they would say, well, Joe, at least he's listening to me. And the Democrats aren't. I heard that everywhere I went. So an easy wake-up call to the Democrats as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, this is the most important part of the equation. We need a unified, mobilized opposition, and we need opposition leaders
Yeah.
who are clearly speaking on behalf of the largest number of people that they possibly can, right?
Yeah.
From sea to shining sea. When they open their mouths, they don't sound like they're spouting talking points, like they're trying to thread a
Yeah.
needle to like
Yeah.
make sure that the people, the environmentalists here and the LGBTQ activists here, and like, and by the way, like I'm like, by the way, I don't want to dismiss any of this. For trans Americans right now, like I understand, like it is a very, very scary time, and I'm not trying to minimize any of this. What I'm trying to say is that there is a message. There is a message that brings a lot of people together. You know, that speaks about loving this country. It speaks about it speaks about like basic principles about human dignity. Everybody deserves basic human dignity, basic due process rights, basic constitutional rights. I don't care if you're trans or gay or straight or MAGA, quite frankly. Like Democrats need to talk like that, right?
Yeah.
And defend and defend people like that, not run things through poll test things. This is what they need to do. It is to get back to very simple messaging, very simple basics, and like, yeah, I mean, someone said like we are human beings. Exactly. Act like a fucking
Yeah.
human.
Fucking
Act like a
human.
fucking human being.
Talk to me like I'm a fucking human. Spot on, Michael. I've always I'm changing topics because I've only got you for a couple more. I've wanted to ask you this. I was naive in that I did not see the large number of corporations and universities and media companies and everybody capitulating to him. I didn't see that. Michael, did you? And why are they
No.
capitulating?
I mean, I have lost so many friends and acquaintances to the very phenomenon that you're talking about, and honestly, it's been like among the most. This has been
Yeah,
a really tough year for me, like in terms of my like personal social life and my personal life. Um, as a result of sort of kind of being in the middle of this.
yeah,
This wreckage of frayed relationships. I mean, the thing that really surprised me was not was what happened after the election. That was when I think the people started taking a knee, like
yeah,
friends, and sort of like putting on the MAGA hat and saying, "I guess this is just
yeah,
the way things are going." And
yeah.
it was very disorienting for me. I mean, I mean, but it really, after between now and then, I went and reread Eichmann in Jerusalem on, Hannah Arendt's,
Hmm.
book from which, we get the sort of this whole concept of the banality of evil.
Yeah.
And you kind of just realize like, yeah, like this is what she was talking about. This was the moral witness that she made when all that went down. And not to say that, not to say that we're facing takeover by a Nazi party. I'm not saying that. But it's amazing. It's amazing how many people
Yeah.
uh, are not as tethered to these sort of like higher principles of sort of, you know like love for sort of country and like above all. I mean, I guess like I'm weird, you're weird. I mean, there's but a lot of people just are like, look, this looks like liberals lost, so I'm heading over here. I mean, like
But
that
but
that's
but
what
but
happened.
Michael, but Mike, explain something to me. I'm not a gazillionaire. These guys are billionaires. Why are they compelled to take a knee to him? They've got God's money, man.
Well, I mean, not all of them have,
True, true,
but I mean,
true,
I mean,
true.
Mark Benioff's recent taking of a knee is pretty.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't know what to make of that. You know,
yeah.
three shouts out to Laureen Powell Jobs as well. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Oldie Land. She's
Mm-hmm.
clearly like she's clearly holding the line. But I mean, there are some good. If you want, I know
Yeah,
that people good billionaires out there. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them are. Look, they're scared as anyone else, right? I mean, they don't
mm-hmm.
have guns. The government has guns. Trump has guns. But yeah, I mean, I expected more from them. I expected more from a lot of my former friends. Some of my former friends are people who you'd know, like names that people your listeners will recognize.
Yeah.
I'll spare the potential for lawsuits and stuff. I'm deeply disappointed.
And Mike, just last question on this. These are these people. Are they just purely transactional? Like if the Democrats win in 28 and the Democrats take the House and the Senate, they'll line up with the next party in charge? Is that how they operate or no?
Oh, sure. They'll rationalize to themselves
Okay.
that they were just doing what they had to do to like, keep themselves and their companies safe. And, they were just, I mean, that's what they'll do.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, I won't forget though. I won't. I won't forget the cowardice.
Are you, last question, Mike Brock, and everybody listening to us, please follow and subscribe to Mike Brock here on Substack. Notes from the circus, his Substack, his newsletter. You will be so much better informed and have such a better understanding of what we're going through and why it means and what it means. Mike, are you do you try my last question, do you try to take a long view as much as you can? Do you try to avoid the daily, weekly shit show? Do you try to rise above it and think about
Oh yeah, I mean,
a
yeah,
longer view?
we live in such a messy, I'm gonna use epistemic word again,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
epistemic environment, where you know, look, information overload is the sort of like uh, like social, it's a social malady of our time. Like
yeah,
we
yeah,
like trying to find signal through the noise is very very hard, and I and so I do try to pay attention to what I like. Here's what I try to think in my, this is what I kind of try to do. I mean, in my mind, I'm trying to like, I try to have a model in my mind about like what is actually happening. Like where
yeah,
does power actually reside in our society today, and how are the contours of that power shaping and shifting over time, and then looking at news stories and looking at public
yeah,
reaction and looking at commentator reaction, and then trying to really just kind of hold the thread of like what are the most important things relative to this model that I think is like the most likely to be true versus like all the other things, and trying to think about like what's the most morally important thing here, and that's what I like try to do rather than respond to every like crazy thing that like Trump
yeah,
says, because like, or
yeah,
every crazy thing that like Stephen Miller says. Like, I mean, I could go ad nauseum on that motherfucker.
yeah.
But like, but and maybe I should a little bit more because I think he has a lot more influence than people realize.
Yeah,
But like, yeah, it's not about taking a long view. It's about trying to be really disciplined and asking yourself, like, what's important right now? What do I think? I mean, like, what do I think people should be paying attention to based on at least my own sort of like moral sense, and I try to be disciplined like that. I try not to go down every single rabbit hole because I
mhm.
know that's how fascists work. They try to light
Yes,
100 fires and keep me like spinning around, and I'm like, no, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at
mhm.
the fact that like I care deeply about the American people and their safety, their life, liberty, the and the security that they deserve, and I see them being snatched off the fucking streets. That is what I see you doing. Like and like
Yes,
and I'm paying deep attention to like to that. I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of like how I like look at it. Whereas like, yeah, like Donald Trump can say like crazy shit, and it's unprecedented and it's dangerous, and he's inciting violence, and this is all true, and everyone's like reacting to it. But for me, I'm trying to just think about like what is the most morally important thing to direct my attention towards in terms of what I see as like most harmful against what I love the most, which is this beautiful experiment that we have, this beautiful, nearly 250-year-old republic.
Mike Brock, everybody, follow him, subscribe to him. Michael, thank you, my brother. Safe travels.
Thank you, Joe. It was fun.
Thanks. Be brave, everybody.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow The Social Contract with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been The Social Contract with Joe Walsh.